Hello, my lovelies. Welcome back to True Talk Tuesday, in which we talk about the real deal on real estate, anything from buying a home to, yes, like I've said before, I have been asked, what do I do when I find a dead body on my property? These questions are piping hot questions, apparently. All right. If you've not seen me before, so this is the first time you've ever stumbled upon my live, my name is Shalisa Muehlberger. I am a real estate agent in the state of Florida with S&D Real Estate Services. I primarily work from Polk County. My hometowns happen to be two hometowns, actually. I work a lot in Bartow, and I also work a lot in Lakeland. So you will find me at markets probably over there somewhere. So tonight, first, as always, like if you're watching and you've got a question, write in the comments so that way I can see it. I've got this little light right up in my eye, so we're gonna move that a minute. But if you've got any comments, let me know. If you've got any questions, let me know. I will answer any questions. Tonight, we are going to talk about myths and facts. I will say some of these myths I 100% believed until I got into real estate. And if you've not been around me before, one of the things that I continuously get in trouble for is the fact that I am very transparent. If I know something, you know something. I'm not going to leave out information because I fully believe that the best way for you to make a decision of this magnitude is to have all the information. So I'm going to give you all the information, the good, bad, and the ugly. All right. So we're going to talk about myth versus facts. What are some of the things that I believed before I got into this, and what is the truth of it all, right? Um, so I'm going to actually, look, it's been a long week already, and it is just Tuesday. So I had to make a little presentation for myself so that we would remember all these. So I'm going to put that up right now. Myth versus fact, right? And of course, maybe the side quest got a little out of hand. All right. Anybody that has problems with side quests will know this. All right. Sometimes you're like, I got to do this. And then all of a sudden you get side quested to make it bigger. This is the case for these slides. All right. So, not sorry. So, myth number one, you need 20% down in order to buy a home. That is not correct. Even at a conventional, I believe it is 10%. We've had Sarah on the show before, so she's talked about the different down payments. Like FHA typically is 3.5%. With USDA, you're going to have 0% down payment. Conventionals typically 10%. I want to say VA is typically what the normal convention. I don't know. I don't do a whole lot of VAs, so I'd have to ask my partner in crime because she works a lot of VA loans. So I'd have to ask her. But USDA, I know, FHA, and conventional, those are all 10, 3.5, and 0. Now, we've talked about this on the show before. All right. All right. Down payment and closing costs are two totally different things. And just because you can get a USDA home loan and you have 0 down does not mean you have 0 out of pocket. All right. Does not mean you have 0 out of pocket. Now, right now, with the way the market is, I expect it to change rapidly soon. But the way the market is, you can ask for seller concessions, and most sellers are giving you seller concessions, which means they will pay part of your closing costs. All right. So that's why I keep saying, buyers, let's get in the game, dudes. Let's go. All right. But 20%, no, you don't need 20% down. It might have been, somebody might have said 20% because they were including things like your inspections and stuff like that. But still, even then, it's not 20%. But maybe that's why 20% might have been including their, maybe that was it. That makes sense. All right. So that kind of does make sense then. Because if you had a conventional loan, we're going to go back to that slide real quick. If you had a conventional loan, right, I said 10% down, right? And the rule of thumb that we've gotten, or when I've asked other lenders about closing costs, I said, what is the percentage of closing costs? And most of them will tell me like 9% of the listing price, like, or whatever the purchase price is, right? So that would, maybe that's why. Maybe that's why they said 20% down. You would need 20% down. But that's still technically only partially right, because like I said, we could get the sellers to pay closing costs. So, and sellers, by the way, don't have a knee-jerk reaction and think, well, I'm not going to put my house on the sale. There are ways that we work with buyers and sellers and negotiate listing prices so that way we can give our buyers, the money and the funds they need, and the seller still gets the funds and money they need. This is why everything in real estate is negotiable, right? We're gonna talk about what is best for both and how do we get that closed. So, but yeah, 20%, meh, yeah, that makes sense to me now. Okay, we're still giving it. That's not the case. So, but now it makes more sense why. Spring is the only good time to buy or sell. Incorrect. Incorrect. All right. You might be able to sell faster in the spring and summer. Okay. Might be able to sell faster, and that's a big might, right? Depending on your market. But I will say that you will have more negotiating, and buyers, you will also have negotiating powers during, say, late winter, early spring, right? Because houses have been sitting on the market longer for those time periods. So buyers, you might be able to negotiate things better with the seller, right? So for buyers, that wouldn't be true. That wouldn't be true. It's not the only time to buy or sell that is good. All right, number 3, you should always wait for rates to drop before buying. Say it with me, class, because if you've been watching for a while, you know exactly what I'm about to say. We date the rate, we marry the house. Date the rate, marry the house. What does that mean? That means there's going to be this house that you look at and you're like, oh, only if the rates were dropped, right? And the house is at a price that you can afford, right? The house, and that's a big one. House is at a price you can afford. But you're going to be like, I want to wait for the rates to drop so then when I can have an even lower price, right? That house goes. That house now is sold. Your dream house, done, gone, right? If you buy the house and you can afford the payment, all right, you can afford the payment, you can always refinance later down the road. All right. I refinanced almost 20 years down the road. Why? Because I just wasn't thinking. All right. But I had like an 8% rate for years and years and years until we just recently refinanced. And I think our refinance happened when rates were still just a little bit high. So I only get dropped like maybe 2 points, maybe. So definitely you want to date the rate, which means you can refinance later, but you're marrying a house. This is a house that might not be available when the rate does drop. So that's what I think of that. Zillow, y'all. I gotta be nice. So I hear a lot from buyers and sellers about Zillow's estimates, both on, okay, they say that I can afford, for buyer side, they'll say, oh, this house says that I can afford this payment, right? And it'll give them an approximation of a payment. Those payments are in a perfect world, right? In a perfect world, this is all that you did, right? It also assumes perfect world credit, perfect world, account repayments, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of things that it takes and assumes, and then it gives you this number. That number is not going to be always correct, right? You can be plus or minus a couple of $100. For the sellers, the estimate on your home. Again, they're not seeing the inside of your home. They're not knowing the upgrades that you've made. None of that. None of that's being taken into account, right? So that can be off by thousands of dollars, right? Plus or minus. So best scenario is contact a realtor. A lot of us will give you a home valuation for free, right? We'll come over, we'll take a look at it, we'll do the comps, right? And then we'll run a report and give you this report for free and say, hey, this is what I see your home is worth, right? And this is why, this is the numbers that affected the valuation that I gave it, right? I'll do that all day long for you. Give me a call. I'll look at your house and we'll be like, okay, yep, this is what I think it's worth. All right. And you can absolutely disagree with me, right? We can talk about it. But I would say do that over trusting an online estimate of any kind, not just Zillow, but any kind of online estimate. They have not looked at your house and they have not seen the upgrades that you've made. And buyers, that calculator is a perfect world scenario. Okay. So don't believe that calculator. Selling your home yourself saves you money. False. That's a big false. You can look up that statistic. Go ahead. I'll wait. All right. Go look it up. All right. It shows that consistently. And now this again, it's a statistic. So it's not this happens every time, right? But it shows that consistently sellers actually end up selling their property for less than they would have if they would have had a realtor helping them sell that home. Why? Because a realtor is also going to be able to negotiate a little bit better with people. We have that home valuation where we can look around and see what your house is worth. We can take into account the upgrades that you made and whether or not they make sense for the market that you're in, right? The other reason that I think you should get a realtor to do this is because of safety. That's my big one. Like imagine you're showing your home to people you don't know, right? Whereas in real estate agent, realtor, right? We are going to go and show that home for you, right? We're going to be there. We're going to also do our due diligence and look up these people. We have access to an app that helps us go, yep, I'm okay, right? We look up people so that way we'll know whether or not we can safely do that, right? We also are that line, I guess, that line where we can make sure that everything in your house is being taken care of, right? So my big thing, I said all that and probably made no sense whatsoever, but I say all that is because I think my relationship to my sellers are to take care of their house like it is mine. I had sellers recently that went up to North Carolina. They were moving, and when they moved, we had a freeze down here. What did I do? I drove out to their house and I made sure that I dripped their pipes. Did we need to? I don't know. I don't get freezes very often here in Florida, but I knew that that was a thing and I didn't want their pipes to bust because that would be a nightmare, right? Right. I don't want them to have to deal with that. So I dripped the pipes, right? I checked on that house almost every other day while they were gone. That way, the house, I made sure it was safe. Why? Because I'm going to treat my people like they're my own. And so I think selling your house on your own, one, you're going to have headaches that you don't know how to get out of. Two, you might not value your home at top dollar and end up selling it for less, right? Even considering adding a commission for a real estate agent, right? You'd still end up selling it for less. And I think just having somebody on your side and be on your team and make sure that you're getting what you want, that's a big deal. So no, it doesn't save you money. And I can tell you, it will not save you on your stress either. All right. Yep. See, I told you I went too far with all that stuff. If you've got any questions, tonight was one of those nights where I really just wanted to go through some of the things. What did I used to believe? The 20% one. Hands down, 20%. I also used to believe the for sale by owners. I did. I believed that you would make more money if you sold it on your own. I was like, why would you do that? And then I see the paperwork. I see the paperwork. And I also looked up some studies, and yep, it's consistent that a for sale by owner is going to make less. Now, some, like I said, that's not always, right? Some do great, and more power to them. I love that for you, right? But I've seen a lot of people get taken advantage of. I've seen a lot of people sign contracts that weren't really contracts, and so yeah, I'd much rather you have a realtor on your side, doing that, or at least help you come up with a checklist or something, right? Something, because I don't think you should be doing that on your own. And the 20%, solidly believe that. Told my children that. Told seniors in high school that. So 100%, I believe that 20%. Lydia, how are you? Lydia, you know I told you that, didn't you? I told you that, the 20%. I know I did. I know I did. We would have, at the end of high school, we would have, my seniors would have a couple of weeks where their grades were already in, and it was time to make up late grades, but then we kind of talked about a lot of real world stuff. We talked about, I would sit down in front of them, and like, all right, what do you want to know? Taxes and buying a home came up every time. Taxes and buying a home. And I had very little, very, very little experience with real estate at that time. So, hey guys, I told you wrong about the 20%. It's not 20%. It's 10% for conventional. All right. All right. That was a fast one. I'm done with this one quick. All right. I am looking for a different inspector to come on. I'm looking for different inspectors. Like, I want a plethora, because I really want us to start talking about the things as far as both from a buyer's point of view and a seller's point of view. I want to talk about the things that would stop a transaction, and what are the inspectors looking for specifically. All right. Oh. Yay! I'm so happy that you closed on a home, Lydia. Lydia is a former student, like I said, and she lives in another state now. Whatever, whatever. I'm glad. I'm so happy for you guys. You're gonna have to show me pictures, all right? Send me pictures, kiddo. Definitely. But we are going to talk next week about the things that inspectors see that could be problematic, things that they suggest definitely to have addressed, right? And we're going to talk about the things that would stop it in lending, because we're going to also talk about insurance again. All right. And insurance, if insurance won't cover something, that stops lending. So we have to talk about how do we get over those things. So it's going to be an ongoing series right now about we've had a lot of buyers come in, and I want them to understand that inspection process really, really well, and understand what are the things that they need to really pay attention for. All right. And sellers, what to fix, right? What do you fix before you sell? Like, I've seen a couple of homes that they say they can go with FHA. By the way, FHA, if you've got an FHA loan, there's an inspection that's done to see if it's doesn't have any safety issues, right? Not only is it a home inspection, but they're looking for safety issues, and they're making sure that all the appliances work and all those kind of things. So I've been in homes where they're like, yeah, it'll go FHA, and I'm like, dude, there's no way, no way, right? So I want you to make sure that you understand those type of issues. What are the issues that I'm so absolutely going that I can't see that passing, right? So we're going to talk about those things next week. And I'm going to, like I said, get one of my home inspectors in on this. I've got a few in mind. But as always, be happy, be safe. Know that I love you, right? Because if people can hate for no reason, I can love for no reason. There you go. All right, my lovelies. I will talk to you next week.